On today's episode of OMG Craft, we are going to be talking about world borders and all of the different mechanics that you can change around to make your world border exactly how you want it. So here we are inside of Minecraft, and something you may not realize is that if you have created a world in the past few years, your world already has a world border. Worlds start with a default world border, and you may walk in a ton of blocks that way or a ton of blocks that way and never see it. That's because the world border by default is at 3 million blocks away. We're going to be using this command an awful lot. It's just the world border command. And the first command that I'll show you guys is get, and this will just get the information of the world border. And so you can see that it is 60, and then there'd be a comma there, 60 million blocks wide. That is full width, so diameter. So the radius is 30 million blocks. You can see the world border for yourself if you teleport in just a little bit of extra room. It is actually on the block itself, so I actually have to scoot back inside of the world border. But here we are at around 3 million blocks. If I hit F3, you can see that those numbers are absolutely insane, and that is where the world border is. So if you wanted a crazy, insane mission that would take you like a year to do, walk towards the world border. No far lands, but there is now a world border at 30 million blocks. I think it's pretty amazing that the game can actually handle being 30 million blocks away from the spawn. And because of how the Minecraft technology works, you can actually go from here all the way to spawn, and all of the biomes, all of the worlds, all of that would link up just fine. Look, we even have some bees in this birch forest here. That's cool. So let's teleport back to 0, 0. And right here, let's go ahead and create a little teleport pad for us. And we'll give ourselves another portal. And since we're creative, we'll immediately head to the Nether. And we're going to run that exact same command. This time I'm going to squeeze it in just by 1 block. And you can see, bam, here we are at the world border in the Nether. That is right. The world border is the same across dimensions. So here in the Nether, we still have that world border. Nothing you can do about it. Over here in the end with the end dragon. The dragon's around here somewhere. I can barely make it out. There it is. Hi, dragon. We're going to use the same command. Teleport all the way over here to the end, and bam, there is the world border in the end. You can see that all of the end city islands still spawn just like they should. They're taking a little while. There they are, amazing little end city islands. Once again, that means that the world border is in the same place in all dimensions, and this can get a little bit confusing, specifically in the Nether, because of the block difference between what you move in the Nether and what you move in the overworld. So you may have a situation where if you create a portal in the Nether, you'll teleport outside of the world border in the overworld. So that can be a little bit frustrating. Back in the overworld, there is a lot that you can change with the world border. So first, let's teleport to 0, 0, and let's bring the world border in so we can see it. So once again, we're going to be using the world border command. This time, let's take a look at the set command, and this will change its border size. So let's say we want 32 blocks in distance, and then next is the time. So how long will it take for that to happen? That is going to be in seconds. Because I want this to be relatively fast, we're going to say 6 seconds. This may be so fast because remember, it's going from 3 million down to 32. Actually, it's going from 60 million down to 32. So this may be so fast that we don't see it at all, but it should animate in 6 seconds. Ah, boom. There it is. I'm going to change this again to a different size. This time, let's choose 6 over 6 seconds. So this will move a block a second as it animates in. You can see that it has a really, really sweet animation. And to show this off, I just wanted to show that this is 6 blocks in diameter, not radius. So remember, it was at 60 million blocks in total, and that is 30 million in any direction. So now we're at 6, so that is only 3 blocks in radius and 6 blocks in diameter. I really love this animation sort of thing that it does. I think that is just so cool that it will animate out. If for some reason you didn't have a time, so let's say we want it to go to 6, it'll happen immediately if you don't add a time indicator in there. But then once you add that time indicator, and this can be over a long period of time. So let's say, 500 seconds. That's over 8 minutes it's going to take to get all the way out there. You can see that this is moving very slowly. very, very slowly. So you can choose really any amount of time, which is really cool. I've hosted UHCs where the world border goes from 1,000 down to 1, and that would take 3 hours to do. So you can add in really, really large amounts of time when you have these commands running. And then of course, if you get tired of it, you can just, do another command. You can interrupt the previous command just fine. That doesn't matter. But I'm going to bring this way in again to show you that you can change the center of the world border just fine. Right now, this is centered on 0, 0. But if you use that world border command again, center, and you could actually center it on the player. So there you go. Now it is centered on the player right there. So if I move over here, center it again on me, or you could choose a specific block. So, and this gets rid of the up and down coordinate. So if you wanted to, you can say 5, 5, and there we go, moved over there to 5, 5. Or if you liked it where it originally was 0, 0, you can move it back to 0, 0. Now, let's say you wanted to add to the world border, but you don't really care where it is at the moment, and you don't want to do that extra bit of math. Let's say you just want to add 10 blocks, which would be 5 blocks on either side, but you don't know where it's at. You don't want to do the math. Well, there is a command for you, world border add, and then we just add 10, and then same thing that we can add our time. So we're going to add this for 6 seconds, and it will do that. This is nice because you don't need to know what the world border is currently at, and you don't need to do any type of mental calculations on determining, okay, so if we're at 12 right now and I want to add 10, then that means I need to do 22, set to 22 over 6 seconds. You can just use the add command. Now, the add command can also be used to subtract. So you could just use a negative number here. Oops, and I didn't add a time that it would do that. But you can add a negative number there if you would like. So we'll put that back over there, back to 10 over 6 seconds. There we go. So it'll subtract, even though you're using the add command just with a negative number. For this next bit, I'm going to be in game mode survival to show you that the world border can actually damage the player. So first, let's do a simple command, which is just to let's reduce the world size or the border size by 10 over 6 seconds. And if I stand here next to the border, as it passes me, even though I am in survival, you can see that I am on the other side of the world border. But as I move further away from that border, well, then I start to take damage. And it looks like it's about a half heart the moment that I step onto the wrong block, a half heart every second while I am away. Then once I travel back through the other side, then I am stuck and I can't get back onto that other area that I was before. Another thing to note is that my HUD, how I view the world is very, very red whenever I get next to the world border. So that changes as well as a warning to me that, hey, you're really close to the world border. Both of these things are going to be changed with the damage command and the warning command. Let's take a look at damage. You have amount and buffer. Let's take a look at buffer. Buffer is the amount of size that you can be outside of the world border in blocks. So by default, it's set to 5, which is why I could step a little bit away from the world border, even though it had closed beyond me. So if you set this to 0, that means that the moment that I pass through that world border, and we can do that same command, then I will start to take damage the moment that I'm on the other side. You could also set this to be a lot higher. So we could say that buffer would be 10 blocks. Then as we contract that world border and I step onto the other side, I can move much, much further away than I was able to before. So now let's take a look at damage amount. The amount of damage you take per second per block that you are away from the world border. So by default, it is 0.2, which is 0.2 damage, and it kind of reads a little bit weird. The set world border damage to 0.2 seconds. It makes it seem like every 0.2 seconds it will damage you, but what that really means is that is the damage per second per block. So if we set this really low, so we're going to set this down to 0.01, and then I stand next to the border and have it contract on me. So I will pass through the world border, and once I find that edge here, you can see that I'm taking very small amounts of damage. I'm only taking that little half heart each time. So as we move back in, Then let me set this damage amount to say 10, pass through the border again. And now that we have 10 damage per second, it's going to really hit me hard. I'm just going to barely step onto the other side wherever this buffer is. Oh my Lanta, holy moly. See how fast it kills you? It is very, very fast. And if I was to do something kind of silly, just to TP myself very far. So let's go pause it, let's say 30 blocks, and let's go up, yeah, 30 blocks that way. I immediately die the moment I leave because the damage is compacted depending on how far away from that buffer area you are. So now let's talk about the world border warning. Warning is that red tint that you see around your HUD, your heads up display, as you get close to the world border. There are two types of warnings. There is a time warning and a distance warning. Time happens to deal with if the world border is contracting in, and by default it's set to 15 seconds. If it's going to overtake you within 15 seconds, then the red effect will start to appear, and it's a gradual effect. So at 15 seconds away, it's not very noticeable, but at 1 second away, it's very noticeable. So if I set this to 2 seconds, and then I'm also going to change the distance warning to 0 just so that we don't have it around. And so I'm going to stand right here and then do that contract thing I've been doing. I'm going to contract, and within 2 seconds, my view will get very red. It's kind of hard to tell that it's red because of the red over there. Let's try that one more time, this time looking down at the blue. So there we go. So you can see within 2 seconds, there we go, 2. Oh, here it goes. Ooh. Oh, it stopped. But anyway, you get the idea. Now I'm going to set the time to 0, and this time we are going to change the distance. So distance is kind of what you would expect, the distance up until the edge of the border. So we have it set to 10 right here. So if I'm very far away, around 10 blocks away, then it will not turn on. But the closer and closer I get, the more red tint you see, all the way up until you get right up on the edge. So we could change this around. So maybe it's only 2 blocks, and that way it doesn't really show up. But the moment I get close, it gets really quite red. And then if you're on the other side, it's at full red the entire time. Well, there you have it. That is really everything there is to know about the world border. Now you can use all of the world border commands in your single player, in your multiplayer, possibly in some type of PvP battle, or just to keep players in one spot, which is really, really nice. Thanks so much for watching this episode of OMG Craft. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a big old thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe for future videos, tips, tricks, tutorials, and spotlights here on OMG Craft. And once again, I am apologizing for my sickness. See you next time. Bye.